Hi there, friends. I'll come in here with a quick note to let you know that the first global Product Owner Summit organized by the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is coming soon. To know more, check out the bit.ly/Product Owner 2023. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2023. That's all one word, all lowercase. And stick around to the end of the episode to know more. But for now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our TGIF and Product Owner episode this week with Daniel Westermayr. Hey, Daniel, welcome back.
Hey, Vashko, good to be back. Is it really already Friday?
It is. It is. I mean, the weeks go so fast here on the podcast. I could swear it wasn't even 1 hour ago when we started talking, and here we are. It's Friday. All right, so let's dive into this. So we'll talk about a great product owner in a minute, but often the most fun stories are about anti-patterns. So let's dive into that right away. What's one of the worst anti-patterns in the product owner role you've witnessed in your career?
I mean, it'd be easy to pick on the absent PO or the overly dominant PO, and believe me, I've seen them all. But interestingly, I firmly believe that everybody desires to do a good job. And when I see the anti-patterns that I'm going to talk about in a minute, I always try to find out what conditions are in place in the given context, what exists that promote these patterns, because even if you the worst imaginable PO probably will not get up in the morning and say something like, okay, now I'm going to make it hard for my team. Yeah. So, and as Dave Snowden once said it, nobody assumes himself as the villain in their own story, right? So I always try to see things from their perspective. And if it's like those, so the absent PO, okay, right, what is pulling on her that she can't find the time to answer questions?
Absolutely. So what have you found? Like, what are the anti-patterns and what kind of reasons or systemic causes have you found cause those anti-patterns?
It was really interesting. It connects probably again with the data part, and then probably you'll recognize some pattern in my work as well. So I had a PO once. She was so eager to impress management that she literally said yes to everything. You know that like, yeah, we can do this as well. We're agile kind of thinking, right? So agile sort of like an excuse for not being straightforward or not prioritizing. But fun thing enough, when I had the forecast ready, I could talk to her on a reasonable level. Like, yeah, obviously we can manage. It will have these effects on the promises you gave to the other people 2 weeks earlier. So, and that made her think, right? And again, like the visualing data is to me one of the most important aspects of the work that we in Scrum have, and I see it as one of my main tasks to help people visualize data, because otherwise it would be like okay, just put it on top of the backlog, put it somewhere else. The list is going to get longer, and
yeah, absolutely. And one of our functions as Scrum Masters is to help the product owners realize when and also how to say no to certain requests that are coming in. And of course, they decide which ones to say no to, but we have to provide the material, both the understanding of forecast, as you said, but also the understanding of what might be other consequences. Maybe we're missing some skills, whatever the reason might be, but we need to provide that to the product owner so that they confidently can say no to certain things that are being asked from them.
And here's what's interesting, and here's you can find out all about organizational culture. Right? So is saying no, meaning as an active choice, is this an appropriate conversation? Can an organization like really digest a no from a person? Because it's always easier to say, yeah, just put it in the backlog and then just let it die there.
That's what happened on the Monday episode, right? Like the organization wasn't ready to hear no.
Exactly. So they were much more comfortable with somebody saying, yeah, we'll deal with it, and fully knowingly that probably it'll never make it to production. So, and then it'll just die a slow and sad death somewhere in the backlog. It's like Oscar Wilde, I think it was, he said, delay is the most deadly form of denial.
And denial is the strongest force in the universe. So
Yeah.
there you go. But when we think about Scrum Masters working with these product owners, we have to help them understand what are the triggers, what are the reasons to say no to these things. So one of them is the forecast. But what other reasons have you found help product owners understand when and how to say no?
I think it has a lot to do with sort of like hope. Okay, but we can deal with it, and when I'm in the spotlight, it's easier to say, yeah, we'll deal with it, and sometime we'll deal with it. So, and people in the meantime won't ask me about it. And what I've had some success with it is when I'm referring to the flow of work, I can safely say, you can say no right now, and then start the work later if it's appropriate and if it's still important at that point. And from a customer viewpoint, it will make no difference. The
Yeah,
customer
exactly.
will wait, let's say, 3 months for it, whether you say yes or no at this point, right? Because your systemic capability is not capable of delivering right now. So he'll have to wait, sure enough. And why not say no at this point, and then at an appropriate time, bring it up again? And a good friend of mine, he was doing a Kanban talk a couple of weeks before, and he had an experience at a locksmith, right? So we were doing Kanban at a locksmith there because they were so overwhelmed with so much work. And at that point, once they realized based on data that they could not accept new customers, they were open to the people calling and asking for work. And they were like, no, we cannot deal with you now. We can put you on a waiting list if you want, and we'll get back to you in due time. And the fun thing was, at first, they were totally anxious on how the customers would react. How did they react? They were actually glad because people were talking honestly with them. And that was an amazing experience that, now I know what's going to happen. It's not like I'll put a request to you and it's like putting it somewhere into a black hole and then never hear from you again. Talk honestly to people.
Absolutely. And people will thank you for that.
Yes. That's
Especially
my
if you do it
experience as well.
early enough, right? Like the early enough part is also important.
Exactly.
So that was the anti-pattern conversation. Now, of course, we're going to end on a high with the best product owner you've ever worked with. Describe them for us, Daniel.
I think the best product owner that I've ever worked with, and I needed some time to wrap my head around that question. And I think the one, maybe even the one most important yet overlooked aspect of being a product owner is that leap of faith. I mean, I get it. Product owner is a demanding role. Organization puts a lot of trust in you, and you would not be a PO if you did not want to shine, right? And maybe you want to put a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs put it once. So it's just too easy that you want to keep a grip on things, right? And even so more if senior management asks, like, do you have things still under control? And I've witnessed this so many times. And I think this is what you need to let go of. And this is what a good product owner does. She lets go of that control aspect. Instead of trying to keep things tight and under control, they have the courage to let go. And I guarantee you, you are going to have a great and motivated bunch of people around you. Just put your trust into them. This is your recipe of success. This is the part that you can control. Everything else is out of your reach. And the greatest product owners that I've worked with, they had that leap of faith. And besides, if everything seems under control, you're not going fast enough.
Of course. And one of the things that I wanted to explore, though, is how does that look like in practice, right? So we can talk about leap of faith and trusting the team and not trying to control the team and not trying to second guess their estimates as an example and so on. We can talk about those things. Those are practical. So for you, what does it mean when the PO is able to take advantage of that leap of faith?
I think it has something to do with that systemic capability that we were talking about. And maybe also, again, referring to your book in the NoEstimate, when you're doing forecasts, a systemic capability is never just one number. it's a range between, let's say, no less than X, but also no more than Y in the future, and not trying to second guess on, okay, Y has this sprint only delivered, I'm making things up, 5 cards of 5 working items instead of normally 11 or 12. Don't go that route. It's just like there is a multitude of things that could happen. The test system can break down. People can get sick. People are on holidays. So just look at the systemic capability. It's always a range. It's got a minimum and it's got a maximum. And don't put too much work in trying to find out the reasons for why do these things happen.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the perspectives of a system thinker, right? Like we can understand certain characteristics of a system without understanding why those characteristics are there. And that's perfectly coherent and useful.
And funny enough, like whenever you're trying to make things up with all that kind of estimates and estimating, and then, okay, is this really an 8 or should it rather be a 5? You can just save yourself the effort and try to put that time into productive work, because you get the same information out of a forecast if you're able to accept that any kind of forecast is a range and not one number. Maybe that's something to take away from this podcast. It's a range. It's always a systemic range.
Yeah,
and I could,
it's a range,
I
not
really,
a number.
Yeah, I really couldn't care less on why that situation came up. These things happen. People get sick, and there is a multitude of reasons why work takes longer than expected.
And systems have their own dynamics that we don't necessarily understand. I mean, of course, there's the getting sick or being moved into another project. Those are things that we can understand. But there's also like interpersonal dynamics that affect the delivery. There's unexpected dependencies that are discovered too late. Like all of those things could affect the ability that the team has to deliver. And we can't actually plan those things in advance. It's not possible. It's far too complex.
That's the noise in the system. What I typically, or I did when I was doing workshops in person, I mean, obviously most of the time I'm working from home as well, but one of my main homeworks that I was giving before I was handing out before a workshop is like, okay, write down in minutes the time that you need to get to the office from your living place. And what people find out, okay, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 45, sometimes it's 50, but I don't even know why. There was nothing special on the road. There was no like traffic delay or something. It just felt normal, but still it took a couple minutes longer, or it was a couple minutes, or I was a couple minutes early. And this is what I mean by systemic range, right?
Yeah, exactly. And accepting that systemic range helps us to make decisions, even if we don't necessarily understand why it's there or why it's so wide or so narrow.
Exactly.
So Daniel, we're getting close to the end. It's been a great week with you, but before we go, do share with us, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Okay, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Also, we do have a smaller Munich conference coming up in let me look up the exact date. We got the Agile Lean Munich coming up on May the 5th, 2023 here in Munich. And also, probably I will be on the Kanban Coaching Exchange in the near future with theory of constraints topics.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, of course, we'll put the link to the conference in the show notes. So do please send that to me so I can add it. And we invite all our listeners to go to LinkedIn and interact with Daniel, find out more about what he's working on, and why not ask some follow-up questions. Daniel, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great honor. I said it in the beginning. I read your book at least twice, and I always quote it, and it's been an awesome experience to talk to you.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around. This year's first global summit dedicated to the product owner role in Scrum will have some amazing keynotes and 2 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. We'll have Roman Pichler, author and product expert who will be answering your questions and sharing the most important aspects of the product owner role. We'll also have Colleen Johnson talking about why roadmaps are probably making your life much harder than it needs to be and what to do instead. This talk was quite a success in Agile Online Summit 2022, and Colleen has learned some new tricks, tools, techniques that she will share with us when it comes to roadmaps for the product owner role. And we will also have Henrik Nyberg, author of Scrum and Kanban from the Trenches, as well as one of the creators of the Spotify model. So come in and listen to his stories. And we'll also have, of course, 2 tracks with many more sessions and even some live sessions. The 2 tracks will cover practices every product owner should know, where we'll be hosting conversations on topics that product owners need to be familiar with, like product backlog refinement, planning, and much more. The second track will be on metrics, measuring product and personal success as a product owner. As product owners, it's crucial to have a clear understanding of what are the metrics that drive success for us, and of course also for the products and businesses that we work with. And we need to continuously measure and optimize those metrics. So in this track, we'll be sharing what's working and what's not in the area of measuring success for product owners. We will also have the opportunity to network with our peers. It's a network event, of course, so get your tickets and join our Slack. Go to bit.ly/product owner 2023. That's all one word, all lowercase. As always, we will have free tickets and VIP tickets, which will give you long-term access to the content of this summit. So check them out at bit.ly/product owner 2023. All lowercase, all one word. I'll see you on the summit floor. One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. So join us at scrummasterpodcast.com and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more full week of Scrum Master tips and tricks.